And it's fantastic because it has all of the world's pioneering technologies that are consumer facing. And over the years, it has been just phenomenal. I remember going back, I think it was like 2017 maybe, or 26, I can't remember. One of those years. I was riding in a self-driving car. I was literally sat in the back seat, no one in the driver's seat, and the car was driving around. Are we recording yet?
Yeah, we're still recording, honey.
Oh.
We are professionals.
Welcome to the Exponential Investor Podcast. Want to be a better, smarter, more clued up investor? Well, you've come to the right place. We cover the breakthrough investment ideas you don't hear about in the mainstream to keep you on top of the megatrends and opportunities reshaping our world.
Good morning and welcome to the Exponential Investor Podcast. Now, you might not remember this face, but I'm Sam Volkering, your editor, and here with Shae Russell, my co-editor. It's been a while since I've been on the podcast. Contrary to popular belief and Twitter, I haven't been murdered, I haven't been kidnapped, and I haven't gone off to shoot a 6-month-long Hollywood blockbuster with Tom Cruise. I've just been on holiday and I'm back. So whether that's a good thing or bad thing in your view, too bad. I am back and here with Shae to talk all things markets and investment and random musings of the world that we see, all designed to help you be a better investor. So Shae, I want to say welcome back, but I suppose that would be welcoming myself back. So can you just give me a welcome back for a moment?
It was getting a little bit lonely there, talking into the microphone, staring at myself. It's really nice to have a person to actually talk to. However, in fairness, the last podcast I did, I was over at my friends in Perth, and he had a fire going in the background. So what nobody could actually see is that I was recording next to a fire. So that's probably the only time I didn't mind not having you there to talk to.
Well, we got pretty close not too long ago when the fire alarm went off in my house. So, I'd like to think we got pretty close, but no, a fire, that's, I don't know. I want to say impressive, but I don't feel like that's the right term for recording in that situation. Anyway,
it's great to have you back. Do you know, I also think people got a little sick of the commodities chat because it has been nothing but commodities for 14 days. So I'm pretty sure everybody's happy to have a little bit of a break from that.
All right, well, let me just get my notes and just cross out all the commodities chat that I had planned for today then. What I wanted to talk to you about today. So last time I was on was a few weeks ago, and since then I've been to 2 conferences. I know you've been to a few conferences, and I wanted to share with our readers, I guess, some of our experiences from those conferences because, the last 2.5 years, we haven't been able to do these things in person. All the conferences and meetings and things that we've spoken at or presented at or whatever it might be have all been virtual, which are okay to a point. But in my view, on the balance, suck, really, compared to, in-person events, on location, what we like to call boots on the ground research, I suppose. So I'll share with you mine in a little bit, but you want to share with us what you've been up to, where you've been, what conferences you've been to, and some of your takeaways from those over the last couple of weeks?
The last couple of months, so the most recent one I went to was the Australian Gold Conference, and that was in the first week of June, and then I was at the Resources Conference in the first week of May, which may have possibly been our last in-person podcast together, Sam. So I did give everybody a bit of a rundown of the Gold Conference when I was there a couple of weeks ago, but I talked about the market specifically. However, what I didn't talk about was the benefits of attending a conference in person. And look, they do sound a little bit wanky. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word here, but they do. It sounds a little bit wanky to be
too late now.
Too late now. Bleep over me if you know I'm Australian. You're probably used to it. They sound like they're, a junket and that it's a bit of a waste of time. But one of the things I find them invaluable for is access to industry knowledge. It's not just hearing like your peers speak to you in private conversations, but it's seeing the innovations, it's seeing how people have progressed, and it's the amount of deals I've caught whispers of just standing on a conference floor, which can make certain companies a lot more attractive when you hear of those happening, is very exciting. This is absolutely not insider trading, by the way. It's just
I was absolutely just about to come out with the disclaimer. All information known is publicly available information, and anything else that we get that isn't public information, we report straight away to the...
Absolutely. But no, it's access to industry knowledge that I really like. The follow-up from this is it gives me a good chance to talk to real people investing. And you'd be the same as me here, Sam. Like when you're staring at a big white screen all day with nothing but little black letters on there, you forget that you're actually talking to a person at the end of the line, or you've lost sight of who you are talking to. So my big takeaway from these conferences, the industry knowledge, but also listening to what people want, hearing the questions that they want answered and how they want to go about, investing or what works for them, because there's a wide demographic of people that go to these things. There's no one type of investor. And I find that, especially from an analyst point of view, it's quite powerful to remember who you are writing to and what information they want to receive.
Yeah, it's you speaking about the breadth of people. So I've been, since we probably last spoke, I think I've been to 3 actually. I presented at 2. I was presenting at the IX Investor Show that was in London. I presented just last week at the iSport Connect Web3 Summit, which was at the Emirates Stadium, Arsenal football ground, which I've never been to before, which is an impressive stadium. Actually, you'd be familiar with a similar stadium. So Marvel Stadium in Melbourne, which is a big Aussie football and cricket and stuff ground, right in the middle of the city, is very, very similar to it. So you've got something to gauge by. But then I was also at the Money 2020 conference in Amsterdam. And, speaking of the breadth of people, at the IX Investor Conference, I've got to speak to individual investors and people looking to, invest in markets, things, where at one point I almost got into a physical fight with somebody, which is probably a story for another day, but not the first and only time I've ever experienced that before.
Okay.
I didn't instigate it, I might add, but
sure,
I certainly, certainly managed to put that fire out. Yeah, I bet you weren't expecting that one. Neither was I, to be fair. And then, but again, talking to investors, to individual investors about how they go about investing and what they want to invest in, all the way through to, like I say, the iSport Connect one last week, where it was full of sports organizations and major brands. There were people from organizations like the Premier League, the NBA, Coca-Cola, Unilever, crypto networks like Tezos, Animoca brands, a huge broad breadth and an array of different people from different industries and different experts and different backgrounds and different knowledge sets. But the interesting thing with a lot of these conferences is that, like you say, you get to sort of see and hear and understand the innovation and development and building that's going on in the industry, and who's doing what and where it's happening and where the sort of centers for all that exist. And like you say, you kind of sniff out the opportunities that come with that as well. And you just don't get that. You don't get that ability to network, to sit at a lunch table and eavesdrop on somebody else's conversation. You don't get that at a virtual conference. And while, yes, they are fun, and we get to travel and we get to sometimes go to some events where the drinks are free. That's a byproduct of what we're really there for, which is to have that boots on the ground experience with the people that are helping reshape or shape or build or create the future world that we're going to be living in. So I think they're invaluable, really, from my perspective. And I've got at least another 3 planned for this year. What about yourself? Have you got much coming up?
Yes. So I am off to the Rural Investment Symposium in the last week of July. Now, this one's being held in Florida. Normally it's held in Vancouver. So that's basically everything underground. And it's sort of aimed at the explorer, junior developer market. So I'm really excited about that one. I'm not excited about the 4 days worth of travel it's going to take me to get out of Australia to get to Florida to come back home for the 4 days of being at the conference. I'm really looking forward to that one, especially too because all my friends are there. And there's probably all my friends are there, and I haven't seen them in a couple of years. And I am absolutely going to brag about this, but it means I get to play pool with Jim Rickards again, and he and I haven't been able to do that in 3 years.
Let me just pick up that name for you, Shane. You just dropped this right here. There you go.
But I can't believe. Oh, and I'm actually presenting at a couple of workshops too this year, so I am excited about that. But this is going to sound really odd to talk this one up, but there's one at the end of the year called IMARC, and it's basically an international mining conference in Melbourne. And it's trying to be the PDAC of Australia. So for those who aren't familiar with PDAC, it's basically a massive explorer conference held in Toronto each year, which I'm really hoping to get to next year. And IMARC in Melbourne is hoping to do the same thing. One of the things I love about the IMARC conference, which isn't coming up till the end of the year, so I will talk about that, but that's a really good chance for me keeping my ear on the ground for the local industry. So when I go to Florida, I'll get to keep my ear on the ground for the North American market, but IMARC for me is all about keeping my ear on the ground for what's happening with Australian resources.
Yeah, well, that sounds pretty good. And I like Florida a lot for 2 reasons. 3 reasons, actually. Disneyland, Universal Studios, and some of the best golf courses in the world. So, I'm sure you'll be utilizing all 3 of those, right?
Well, it's being held at a resort, a beachside resort this year. So I can absolutely assure you, while I'm working, there will be the odd cocktail in hand by the pool. I might not actually see any of Florida or any of the golf courses.
Fair enough. Maybe that's just me. But so I've got a couple coming up as well. Coming up, I think it's in a couple of months' time, is a big banking and finance one called Cybos, which I do go to quite regularly. It's sort of more traditional finance, and it's good to keep an ear to the ground as to what's happening in TradFi, so to speak, because over the years, if you've been even slightly involved in cryptocurrencies, you've basically been sort of ushered to a secret room to eat lunch with all the other strange crypto people while everyone else enjoys the really nice ones. But no, the conversation around that changes over the years, and it'd be interesting to see, particularly over the last couple of years, because one of the things I picked up out of Money 2020, right, was the pandemic has actually accelerated a lot of development in FinTech and really pushed forward, particularly even around payments and mobile payments and things like that. Is that people just I don't know what it's like in Australia, but right here now in the UK, no one uses cash anymore. Like really, no one uses cash, and that's been accelerated because of the pandemic. Because people thought that you could get COVID from notes. Whether that's true or not, it doesn't matter. It's accelerated the fact that people just don't use or carry cash anymore, which is something I haven't done for a while. But anyway, that's just one of the interesting things that's come out of the last couple of years. So keen to see what's going to happen there. And then there's another one, Token 2049 is another big one that's a crypto-based one, which is usually towards the end of the year. But the one I'm really looking forward to technically isn't actually this year, but it's the CES show in Las Vegas, which usually happens every year. So CES is the Consumer Electronics Show. They just call it CES though. And it's massive. It's trade and industry only. So if you're a member of the general public and you want to go check it all out, you cannot. So no entrance for you. And it's fantastic because it has all of the world's pioneering technologies that are consumer facing. And over the years, it has been just phenomenal. I remember going back, I think it was like 2017 maybe, or 26, I can't remember. One of those years. I was riding in a self-driving car. I was literally sat in the back seat, no one in the driver's seat, and the car was driving around. Are we recording yet?
Yeah, we're still recording, honey.
Oh.
We are professionals.
Okay, you may notice just now there's a really awkward and rough cut. It's because my camera just dropped out and my audio, so I have no idea what I just finished talking about and what I'm going to start talking about. But I'm going to pick up somewhere around the fact that I think I was talking about all the pioneering consumer technologies that happen at CES, which is so amazing. Like I said, self-driving cars, wireless charging networks, which I'm not talking about like having your phone on a pad next to your bed. I'm talking about me standing here with my phone and it just charging in the air like magic. It's really cool. TV tech, phone tech, cars, everything that you can think of when it comes to the world's pioneering technologies is at CES. So I'm really excited to be back at that in person. We're going back to that. That's usually literally like the first week of January. So not technically this year, but close enough to think that that's one of the big ones that are coming up. So look, there's lots of stuff that we go to. There's lots of stuff that we go and see, people we speak to. And I think the key point is it's not sort of to brag about us doing all this fun stuff. It's to show that it's important that when you're looking at any industry, commodities, technology, cryptocurrencies, whatever, that you get out there and don't just be a desk jockey and spend your entire life behind the screen doing it. And as an investor as well, a lot of these things are actually open for people to go and see. And although CES isn't, because you got to be on the inner sanctum with that one. The point is that you can get to a lot of them, and it's worth it because what you pick up at a lot of these things from industry insiders and people that are working on a lot of this stuff is invaluable. You just don't pick it up in a mainstream media report. We try and relate what we see to, but being there in person as well, I think if you're serious about your investments and where you're investing and what you're investing in, you should try and get to some of these conferences as well.
Great. I know we're probably getting near time when we need to wrap up, but on the technology front, and this is why these conferences do matter, and they do sound like fun, and there are fun elements to them. But one of the things I was blown away by IMARC in 2019 was how it was showcasing the technology being brought into the mining sector. Simple thing was augmented reality and virtual headsets, for example. So what they were doing was rather than just showing you a 3D model on a computer, part of the augmented reality, and I might be using the wrong names here, so just bear with me. I'm not a technophobe. I just don't know what to freaking call the stuff. But they would have, the modeling, the ore body modeling as basically a projected image, like a 3D projected image into the screen. But the other, so that was one of the examples. Another one was autonomous trucks. So there was a guy from Sweden walking around. He was a programmer of, 7 or 8 ton trucks and teaching companies how they can integrate further autonomous vehicles into their mines. Another one that I thought that is going to have huge benefits for the industry, because there's a lot of old timers who can't leave the industry because the skill set's not there, is these virtual reality headsets. By being able to put a virtual headset on, a guy in head office in, let's say, Perth, for example, can actually talk through a junior how to operate plant and machinery or plant and equipment out on site, because they can see they've got the same tools that they're using, and they don't actually need to transfer staff, thousands of kilometers away, which is, can be a whole day's flight in Australia. So, and you wouldn't get that information in a technical report. Yes, they describe it, but until you can see the visual power that it's got, you don't really understand how it's game changing for how these businesses can run.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up that in particular, because I'm expecting that this year's CES is going to be heavy on augmented and mixed reality stuff. This is an area that we've been writing about for years now, about this augmented reality experience coming to the world. The rumor is that Apple's going to release their own augmented reality headset in time for Christmas this year. If that hits the market, expect that sector, everything to explode around it. Things like the metaverse, industry, like big industry has actually been using this stuff, like you say, for quite some time in mining and engineering, but it's going to bleed out into the consumer world as well. And that's going to be a huge area that I'm certainly continuing to look at and focus on, because it's going to, once a major device manufacturer like Apple comes out and says, you know what, this is how we see the future. And Tim Cook's been talking about this stuff for years as well. It's going to blow up in the mind of the consumer and subsequently the investor. So I think it's absolutely a really interesting and cool section of what's coming down the pike that investors should be looking at. So keen to hear as well if anybody listening has thoughts on augmented reality or mixed reality, where they see it going. We're happy for you to write in and let us know your thoughts about the industry, and if there are opportunities you think that are coming up. We'd love to engage and get you to let us know what you see happening in this world, or anything else, commodities, tech, whatever. Or if you've maybe been to a conference that you thought was really good, that maybe you think Shae or I should maybe visit at some point in the future, let us know. We'll come and say hi, share a coffee or a beer or something as well. Anyway, Shae's right. We've gone on far too long today for the Exponential Investor Podcast, but it's been a while, so there's a little catch-up thing going on here. So thanks, Shae. It's been a pleasure as usual. Good to be back.
Great
Looking forward to our regular podcast again going forward. Thank you all for watching this week. We'll be back with you again next week with another Exponential Investor Podcast. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.